Okay, hello to everybody, Ryan.
Hello. We're on Facebook here. Alabama Tradition starting in just a couple of minutes. Martin Houston, myself. You're going to have to scoot closer tonight, so I'm going to have to find a way. So we're going to be starting on the radio here in just a couple seconds. And we have to share a PC here, so we're...
But hey, guys, want to remind you that we also go live. Of course, you know, if you're listening right now, you go live. We go live on YouTube. But if you don't have YouTube or you're out, you can download the Tide 109 app on your smartphone. You also have the ability to talk to your local radio station. It's a syndicated show, and if we're not being picked up where you're at, tell your radio stations to reach out to us. You can email me at martin@martinhouston.org or Ryan at
thegameintuscaloosa@gmail.com. thegameintuscaloosa@gmail.com. Here we go. And welcome into another Alabama Tradition. I'm Ryan Fowler. Mark Houston here beside me. We're going to be talking a lot of Alabama Crimson Tide football. Alabama going on the road and beating those Aggies from Texas A&M. 47-28. Alabama got the job done. We're going to talk about the offensive line. Are they taking steps in the right direction? We'll talk about the defensive side of the football. Are they showing promise? Or are they stepping in the right direction? We'll talk about that as we move into that direction. It is the third Saturday of October, a rivalry that stretches back 102 times. When you look at Alabama and Tennessee getting together one more time, it'll almost be supper and breakfast inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. I think Tua Tagovailoa said it better yesterday. He said, when you talk about Alabama and Tennessee, we're going to get out of Bryant-Denny Stadium right before church on Sunday. So 8 o'clock when you talk about inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. We'll talk about it in so many different angles. We'll talk about is the rivalry for Alabama-Tennessee. Is it losing any luster? We'll give you a local Tuscaloosa perspective. We got Nick Saban audio that will get into the conversation. Mark Houston, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome into Alabama Tradition.
I am doing great, Ryan, and of course, Alabama still continuing their winning ways, so even better. And then, of course, it's the third week of October, and that always means something special to the Bama fans, or used to, and at least I think it still means something to the players.
All right, so when you look at Alabama Crimson Tide football, I no doubt I want to talk about this, but I also want to give a chance to go back to Texas A&M. Alabama's defense, I thought, really took another step in the right direction. It was great to see Terrell Lewis double his sack total. Anthony Jennings also getting back to that confidence, and I think both of these players have been trying to get back to where they're very comfortable and the younger players around them, and I think they're finally turning loose, and you saw Nick Saban maybe giving a little more aggressive look to Kelly Mond and Jimbo Fisher's offense. Even though they scored quite a few points, when you look at Alabama able to win the game. Offensive line, Landon Dickerson able to get a real good push. Deontay Brown, second game back at that right guard spot. I think Evan Neal's beginning to develop as what we thought he would be as a major player coming out of IMG Academy, playing at that left guard. The tackles have always been Mr. Dependable. So the offensive line. But your biggest takeaway when you look back at Alabama, Texas A&M, Alabama gets the job done there at Kyle Field.
Well, I think that they used the week to put in a few more things with the defense. You talked about Terrell Lewis, Anthony Jennings, looking like the outside pass rushers that we thought they could be. I think Anthony Jennings didn't make probably the player of the week because of the penalties and mistakes he made, but the plays he did make, he looked like the old Anthony Jennings. And you have to think about it, Ryan. When was the last time we had our first two guys healthy at the same time playing their best football. It's been a long time. This is at least 2 years running, and I think Saturday was as close as we've gotten. And because of that, we were able to put in a few more stunts, twists, and blitzes, and I think that created some of the success we had as well.
So we see a lot of players taking steps in the right direction. Terrell Lewis doubling his sack total, but it was more than just those 2 sacks. He was getting and making uncomfortable. They were also getting a pretty good rush up the middle. But I want to ask you about Raekwon Davis. When you look at Raekwon Davis, all of us sort of thought going into the season that maybe he would be a first-round guy. I'm not saying that he's not a first-round guy, but he's going to have to continue that production. If you get to the next level, you're going to have to create some headaches, regardless of which position you play. What is Raekwon Davis? Statistically, he's not showing up, but what do you see in big number 99, Raekwon Davis from Meridian, Mississippi?
I still see a guy that's impacting the game, not as disruptive as we thought early on. We thought that he would be a lot more disruptive in the game, but he's helping in a different way, and that sometimes that happens. You don't always get to be the guy that shows up on the stat sheet, but I think Raekwon Davis is allowing. First of all, our young linebackers would be even more lost if you didn't have a Raekwon Davis keeping guys off of them. And I also think that that's going to help Anthony Jennings and those guys.
So do you think he's sacrificing a little bit from the leadership standpoint, that maybe he's taking some responsibility, or maybe his stats are not showing up? Is that a part of it?
I don't know if he has a choice, Ryan. I think when you all of a sudden you don't have a Quinnen Williams. Like I think Jacob and I said this last week, he missed a golden opportunity last year where he could have feasted because you had a nose guard that was requiring 2 to 3 guys and left him on an island a lot. Now, when you look at our defensive line, who's the pass rush threat? I mean, as far as
Christian Barrymore?
No. Well, yeah, Christian Barrymore up the middle, but I think a Christian Barrymore may actually help a Raekwon Davis down the road. DJ Dale is a guy that I think can plug the middle, play really good, but he's not going to get that pass rush that Quinnen got last year. So what you do as an offensive line, Ryan, is what? You go into it and go, which one of these guys is going to impact our quarterback? Okay, we can take this center one-on-one and take our chance. We can take this freshman over here, Borgby and Byron, and we can. So what you see is a lot of guys double teaming Raekwon Davis, and even when he beats one guy, there's another guy there to help him. But that's also preventing them from getting up on the linebackers. And as you see us blitz more, guess what's going to happen? That guard now has to start keeping his eye on the linebacker, which I think will also free up Raekwon Davis. So I think as his defense gets better, we're going to see Raekwon become more of a disruptive player. I think he's playing great for what they need him to be doing right now.
When you look in Tuscaloosa, you look at the University of Alabama, regardless of which position you play, whether you're a quarterback, whether you're a center, whether you're a linebacker, Nick Saban is going to play the very best guy. He's willing to take whoever it is and put him on the side and say, listen, the guy, and I think that's what creates the culture in Tuscaloosa. When you look at Chris Owens, very dependable at the center position, but Landon Dickerson, I thought, gave you something else. I'm not saying that Chris Owens is not going to have a role in this offensive line, but judging from those 5 guys that walked out there, it looked like Landon Dickerson gave you something. And maybe that's to help with Deontay Brown because it's also his second game, and he begins to get more confidence coming out of the bye week. But that offensive line got a push, and they created some holes for the running backs.
I love Landon Dickerson as a player, not just because of his execution on the field, Ryan. I believe he's a guy that raises the water level. I believe he makes the guys around him better. I think he changes their attitude. One of the things we have right now at Alabama is a talented offensive line. But if without, of course, Brown, I think, brings a little bit of this as well. If you take Landon Dickerson out, you would say we have a talented offensive line, but a soft offensive line. Well, Jedrick Wills now is beginning to play with that edge, that attitude. Brown's going to bring that attitude. Dickerson's going to, and I think he's going to also help with Evan Neal, who is going to get more comfortable. And then Leatherwood, he's out there on that island and he's doing his thing, but it's still a mindset. Think about chemistry. What do we say in football? What's the chemistry? What's the chemistry? Well, in chemistry, Ryan, sometimes you don't know, if you don't know what you're doing especially, but sometimes you add one more molecule and it changes the whole dynamic of that chemical. Well, our offensive line, to me, against Texas A&M, the chemical we needed was Brown back in, because that was the difference. When Dickerson played the last time, it wasn't Brown beside him. Him at center, Brown, Neal, Wheels, Leatherwood, that's 5 guys that I would love to line up behind and go to war with. And I think that they're only going to get better as they play together more.
All right, so Martin Houston here, Alabama tradition, past, present, and future of the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're going to go back and we're going to talk about the third Saturday of October. But before we get into that, going back to those running backs, Najee Harris.
Hey!
I just wanted to say welcome to the party, Martin Houston.
Hey, listen. I said it from the beginning, Ryan. I hope that Najee Harris makes me eat my words. I said I hope I'm eating crow by the middle of the season. And what I see in Najee Harris is a young man that, Ryan, and I guess it kind of dawned on me, I've done it before. You're not going to get as many carries, so you try to make every score a touchdown. And that's the way he ran last year. That's the way he ran
That's the way he had to run, right?
Because he wasn't going to get the number of carries. And he came into this season running that way. But I think he finally feels comfortable. I'm the man. I'm going to get the majority of the line share of the carries. I don't have to score. I can finish runs. And I have not seen what we saw the last couple of weeks until then. And I'm on board. I mean, hey, listen, I'm glad I was wrong that Najee Harris doesn't have a tough side to him and doesn't finish runs. No one's happier about that than I am, except for maybe the people who were already on board.
All right. So Alabama, let me just ask you this question, and we can answer it on the other side. What if Alabama adds that dimension to their offense where they get things cranked up, where they're able to smash mouth? Because both running backs, Brian Robinson and Najee Harris, went for over 5-yard average.
Yes.
If they're able to get that cranked up, they add this to this already dynamic offense. Maybe we should start remembering our defensive coordinators in the Southeastern Conference every Sunday morning in a moment of prayer.
Do you want me to wait and answer that? Because I have there's something we talked about.
Let's hold it over.
There's something we said would happen, and it hasn't happened, but I think we're right on the verge of it happening. All
right, so it's Alabama tradition. We're talking about the Alabama Crimson Tide. We want to greatly appreciate our affiliates throughout the state of Alabama and our neighboring states. Hello up there to Jackson, Tennessee. I know it's been 4,740-something days since the last time you guys have beat the Alabama Crimson Tide. You're tuning in. That's what happens. You know, our first affiliate for Alabama tradition, as we cover the past, present, and future, was 105.3 Fox Sports in Jackson, Mississippi. So we thank our affiliate up there. We're syndicated
Tennessee?
Jackson, Tennessee. Jackson.
You said Mississippi.
Oh, did I really?
Just
okay.
making sure.
Well, Jackson, Mississippi's that way, and Tennessee's that way.
That's right.
So Jackson, Tennessee.
Absolutely.
That way. Up north. Hello to you guys up there. We greatly appreciate all of our affiliates, including WYEA 1290 there in Childersburg, Alabama, 100.3 on Kicks FM. We'll salute all of our other affiliates as we travel throughout as we cover the University of Alabama. We're going to talk about the other dimension of Alabama's offense, and has the third Saturday of October lost a little bit of luster. We'll talk about what this rivalry means to each one of us right here on Alabama Tradition as we cover the past, present, and future of the Alabama Crimson Tide. All right. That's good. It's good.
Hey, have you had a chance to convert that Periscope?
No, I have.
I mean, Twitter.
Yeah, I have it.
When you do that,
Yeah, I did.
did you see what I did today?
I saw it just from a.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
Where were you at?
Am I on?
Oh, you were? Okay, I was trying to figure out where you were at. Because the color on the back looked like you were outside. And I knew it was raining, and I kept looking outside. And I was like, where is Martin if he's...
it was a backdrop at the office.
Yes, it's the color scheme on the back. So as we continue there on Facebook Live, and we're going to be back here in just a couple of minutes, and I'm setting up a tripod. I have done something to my tripod that for some reason it wants to lean. For some reason it's leaning here. See how it's doing? So I gotta undo that right there. I think I got it on there back somehow.
Can you not make it? You talking about because it's rotating now? It used to not
Yeah,
do that.
see how it's doing this?
It used to not do that.
It used to be, and so what's happened is that little bit of a gap right there. We're working on it.
You got 20 seconds.
Here, I got this right here. I had to get that.
Yeah, but that's that thing. Maybe tighten it.
Probably. Maybe the opposite direction.
Yeah. We need to get the speaker.
I think that passion actually heightens. I think you hope the passion certainly does that for the players who are participating. And hopefully it'll be the case with our team and our players, realizing the significance of this game and how important it is to so many of us internally and externally. And I think it creates a lot of interest. And I know this has always been a big game for Alabama folks, and certainly a big game for us.
All right, so Nick Saban kind of giving us an understanding of the rivalry. I think Nick Saban gets it. I think he understands and appreciates. So when you talk about the rivalry of Alabama, Tennessee, we're going to get to that, whether it's lost a little bit of luster, but I was sort of saving this. Martin Houston wanted to address this. Welcome back into Alabama tradition, the past, present, and the future of the Alabama Crimson Tide as we are syndicated throughout the state of Alabama and even in some of our neighboring states as we covered the Alabama Crimson Tide. I go back for just a couple of minutes. When you listen back at this Alabama offensive game plan, when you talk about both starting backs, and I put it that's kind of as a 1A, 1B with Brian Robinson, both of these guys averaging 5 yards per carry. If Alabama can add that side of the rushing attack. You know, we've talked about, and we've sort of had wishful thinking when you talk about Alabama Crimson Tide football from a standpoint of, you know, getting that cranked up. When you have Tua Tagovailoa, an elite passer, and all these wide receivers, Alabama's gearing up. It's not about beating Tennessee. It's not about beating Arkansas. It's about using these two games to get better where you're ready for the challenge ahead. And it's going to be LSU, because a great way to stop that LSU offense is to keep them on the sidelines. Can Alabama do that with their rushing attack? Martin Houston, you want to address this in a lot of different ways, and we'll let you do that when you look at Alabama Crimson Tide football in the running back position. What do you think? What do you think? Did you see a difference there? And if Alabama's able to get that cranked up, it's pretty incredible.
Well, first of all, just the running game in general, we've talked about it needing to improve. And I think that has happened. And there needs to be a commitment to the running game. I think that has happened. The thing that we've not talked about since before Tua won the job is, what did we say, Ryan? We said this for a year. If Tua wins the job, it's going to help our running game. Well, we hadn't seen that, right? We have not seen that. Why? Because we became so RPO heavy. So it actually was having a negative effect on the running game. But now that we've got to the point, Ryan, where we have a varied offense, where we're actually using the play action pass, did you see the motion play that Ruggs scored the touchdown on?
Yes.
And
yes.
they use motion to bring the safety up. Well, think about what's going to happen when we start running the ball. When now all of a sudden we didn't have a play action pass last year. We just had RPOs. So the running game didn't benefit Tua, and Tua didn't necessarily benefit the running game as much as we had thought. But I think what we're going to see now is a running game that's going to benefit from the fact that you are going to have to stay out of the box. Tua's going to get guys back out of the box because now we're not RPOing. We're lining up and we can run the ball at you. If you come in the box,
another part, and that's the way you're going to beat these explosive teams. You're going to have to, because in the current rules, and we were all talking about this, Martin Houston and I had a chance to do lunch earlier this week, and we were breaking it down from so many different angles when you talk about offensive numbers and the offensive efficiency. But it's simple. That's the way you're going to be able to slow these offenses down, is simply by possession, controlling the game. Because Nick Saban has put a point of emphasis of using that word, controlling the game.
And what did we do? What did we do Saturday? We had 2 drives that were, at least 2 drives, maybe 3, that was 7 plays or more. We hadn't had a 10-play scoring drive in 2 years.
Been a while.
Huh?
It's been a while.
It's been quite a while. And those types of drives do 2 things. They're going to keep the LSUs off the field. They're going to give our defense with the young, just something we hadn't talked about, maybe we can get to it, is we have young linebackers, Ryan, and they don't get the chance to be coached and corrected on the sideline for 2 reasons. One is they're not as good as telling the coach what they see, first of all. Then the coach is not as good at communicating with them, and we're trying to do that in a hurried fashion, and guess who he coaches? The linebackers. But he has to coach the whole defense, and he also has to coach the freshmen, and that's magnifying the problem. I think that's what you saw Nick Saban do. It didn't look like we were controlling the clock or trying to slow down our offense. It looked like we were trying to score, but we call those plays. We call pass plays a little different, Ryan, in that first drive against Texas A&M than we have throughout the year.
Have we given Sark enough credit for coming in? Because there was a lot of people outside of Tuscaloosa that did not give him. Now I know he's got Tua Tagovailoa, and I know he's got the wide receivers, but listen, I don't know if I could drive a Lamborghini if Deontay Wilder said, Ryan, take my Lamborghini for a spin around Tuscaloosa. I don't know if I could do that. I could try. But I mean, because it's not about, driving it. It's about when you get the gas, when you lose control. Do you want to get fancy when you've got a hotshot quarterback? Do you want to hit the gas? Do you want to burn the tires out? Well, when you look at Sark, he's kind of come in and sort of said, okay, hey, this is our team, and really adjusted to the strength of this personality.
What I find interesting that Sark did and Saban did is they actually, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but they have rolled out his playbook in a phased approach. We've yet to run the exact same plan yet. Every game's been a little bit different, but every game plan has added a little bit. This is what I love. I mean, it's like the game within the game. That play I was telling you about. You send guys in motion for the distinct purpose to figure out. One of them is to figure out if it's man-to-man. When Jerry Jeudy came across the field, Ryan, go back and look. He wasn't running a route at all. He simply ran and stood over there and waited. But guess what? If that guy doesn't come up, guess what we do the next time? If that guy stays back to play over Ruggs, the next time we send Jeudy over there, and what does Tua do? Tua pumps fake deep and then throws it to Ruggs out in the flat. Another thing that Sark did with the wide receivers, you're talking about you can have all the players you want. If you don't have plays for them and a design that keeps them engaged, he brought them into the backfield and he ran the halfback angle for a third down play. He put Judy. Can you imagine what linebacker in the country is going to see Judy coming out of the backfield, going toward the flat, Judy plants his foot, comes back to the middle of the field. What linebacker do you know that's going to be able to cover that guy on a 3rd and 3?
Hey, I'll take him. I'll
take Judy every time.
And so as we look at this Alabama Crimson Tide football, Theo Gibson, which is Bama Theo on the Twitter account, very big fan of his because I like the way that he understands the game of college football. And he sent us a tweet a couple of seconds ago. He said the corner sat on that slant, and that has been a very big part of our offensive attack. Coming up in the next segment, we'll work in some Tua Tagovailoa audio because they're talking about, well, is that all you're going to run is slants? He said, well, until you stop it. I mean, if you want to do something about it, stop it. Stop it.
Well, right. And they did. And guess what? Ruggs ran right by the guy. So that's what I'm talking about, the patience of Sark in this offense. He's not trying to, Kiffin would do stuff just to show you he can show you up. Sark
raising the hands and all the little fancy things.
And he would run everything in his playbook. Sark is slowly, Ryan, we have an RPO game. We have play action pass. We have West Coast offense. We have a route tree system for our running backs. We're not running just the flat out in the flat. They're running angles. They're running wheel routes. They're running down the middle of the field. All of those things are creating coverages and ways to keep guys engaged in the game, but we're not seeing it all at one time. And so now if you're looking at film, from one week to the next, you can't go, well, what's Alabama's tendency? The only tendency we really had was what? The slant. Well, guess what? The slant was really not a call play. The slant was based on if you took away the run, we threw the slant. If you didn't take away the slant, we ran it. So it really is not even a call play.
Oh, this Alabama Crimson Tide football as we are putting up record-setting numbers, but not enough numbers to be recognized. AP releasing their mid-season All-American list. We're at the halfway point of college football. Only one Alabama guy. That guy, Devontae Smith, which is the leading receiver when you talk about yards, 38 receptions. Jerry Jeudy actually has a few more receptions, but not quite as many yards, but that just kind of helps us understand the quality in that wide receiver room. Athlon Sports putting out a publication when you talk about mid-season All-Americans. Tua Tagovailoa not on that list. He's on the second string. Joe Burrow on both of those. When you talk about Jedrick Wills was on the first one of Athlon's, but no wide receiver from the University of Alabama on that first team Athlon's All-American. So we'll talk about that. The third Saturday of October, has it lost a little bit of luster? Let's talk about this for just a couple of minutes. When you look at all of us, and I say older guys, that we grew up when we had watched Jason Witten and Peyton Manning and T. Martin and guys beat us. I think all of us have an appreciation that's a little bit different than all the youngsters. When they look at Tennessee and Alabama, it doesn't mean as much to them because Alabama really has beat them, and only 2 games have been close, is 2015 and 2009. The Rocky Cody block, and then 2015, which is the Derrick Henry, Jacob Coker 8-9 minute drive to take the lead. The only 2 games have been close. Everything else has been 4 or 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it means as much, and it doesn't mean as much, especially to the younger generation. I think if you kind of broke it down, I think it means more to those who grew up Alabama, Coach Bryant. I think it means more to them because that's when the third Saturday in October became the big mantra, and the cigars became the big mantra under Coach Bryant. I think my generation, it means something to us because when I came to Alabama, we were coming off of a 5-game losing streak to them. And then we went into a 10-game no-lose streak. We had 1 tie in there. And then when I finished up, we watched Peyton Manning come in here and, run. So we can have an appreciation from it, from the field and not just the tradition. And it was instilled in us. And I have nightmares when I hear Rocky talk because they used to put the big concert speakers out on the field, Ryan, and blast them. And I'm talking about Rocky talk nonstop.
Martin, it was always crazy as a student at the University of Alabama because we always saw from our side of the fence. We didn't see inside of the fence. You could hear it. You could hear it all over campus. You could literally. I know we're having some strange looks. Jacob is a little bit younger. He doesn't remember Alabama losing in Tennessee.
Think about concert speakers spread out all over the field outside practice facility. And it was turned wide open, Jacob. And it was just like you couldn't hear each other talk. It was Rocky Top, non-stop from Monday through Friday, man. It was horrible.
You could, I mean, it was crazy. And the town would do things, and you'd have, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Listen, it was a special time in Tuscaloosa when you would hear, and you would drive by Hackberry, and you'd see and you'd hear the sounds. It was. I cannot even describe because it was just a loud, and then also pipe in the crowd noise because playing in front of 102,000 loud, crazy fans, but they're not as, I mean, all you have to do now is just play with a quarter and then they're gone, right?
That's right.
So you play 15 minutes and they're out the gate. That's what Tennessee fans have become. That's unfortunate. You think Tennessee could ever come back, though? I mean, you look at that state, for some reason, they've got Chattanooga, they've got Memphis, they've got Nashville, Knoxville. It's a long state, but for some reason, that state doesn't produce as many high school football players, and the ones that are highly thought of, Alabama goes up and steals them, i.e. Dante Hightower and Barrett Jones. I mean, two players that were number one in those classifications. We go and get what we want from that state.
But you have to look at what Jeremy Pruitt's done. He has a couple of guys this year that Alabama wanted. The tight end from last year, the linebacker out of California,
Henry Toto.
A couple of kids from Georgia. So what you have, and that's why I'm telling the Tennessee people, do not panic and get rid of Jeremy Pruitt. Because
I want him back here, so I want him to panic. I want him to panic.
Well, you see, I want the game to be relevant and interesting, but
okay.
But I still want us to kick their butt. But when you look at it, Jeremy has put together a recruiting staff, Ryan, that has relationships outside of the state of Tennessee. The problem with Tennessee is they brought in people who didn't have relationships in the South with Kiffin. Dooley was okay, but he wasn't really that great a coach. Kiffin and Jones didn't have relationships in the South. So the kids weren't going to come there and play for them. I think the coaching staff he has now, 6 guys that have coached at Georgia or somewhere in the Southeast Conference, they can go in and get kids that
Well, Derek Ansley's their defense coordinator, which coached here.
So you have guys there, I think, that can turn it around. So you ask the question, can Tennessee save it? And the question I would like to ask, for us it's not relevant, but do you think the Tennessee fans are like, are they at the point now where it's like, you made a bad investment, but you don't take the money out of the stock market when it's going down,
right,
because you want to be right? Is the Tennessee fans dying for this rivalry? Because a lot of people say, well, we should just change it. Do the Tennessee fans still want it?
Flip the script. When we were going through a 7-game losing streak just a couple of years ago, and we broke that in 2002, what did it mean to us?
We couldn't wait to get that win. It didn't matter that we were losing.
And so maybe that makes Alabama a better football program than Tennessee. So Tennessee, if you guys have lost that energy, then that really explains, because I think Nick Saban took this into a perfect marriage. We'll talk about that. We'll preview the game. What do we think about this game? Vegas has got a huge odds. We'll talk about that. More Nick Saban audio, more Tua Tagovailoa audio. We'll get into the conversation right here on Alabama Tradition, the past, present, and future of the Alabama Crimson Tide.
You're listening to Tide 100.
All right, guys, so we'll get...
Leo Jones, Kia Mazda.
What's up?
Hey, there's some Tua Tagovailoa audio in there.
Yeah.
We may work a couple of those in there, too. And I'll call them if you want me to, or you can play them.
I was going to play the slants one.
Perfect.
Coming back.
That's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. It's up
I've
to
got
conversation.
crowd noise and the miscommunication with Judy, too, if you want that. And there's much more, too. So.
Okay. All right, I'm going to set up a couple things.
You can try out the network and see the savings for yourself.
Happy iPhone season!
It's on your
What's not to love?
I just
Twitter.
love it.
The game.
Celebrate iPhone season at Sprint. Switch to Sprint to get the new iPhone 11 for $0 per month and to trade in your iPhone 7 or newer in any condition. Get yours right now at your local Sprint store, sprint.com, or call 800-SPRINT1. iPhone 11 64 gigabytes, $0 a month. And iPhone 11 Pro 64 gigabytes.
All right.
Phone costs $29.17 a month credit for 18 months with Smith Flex lease support.
I'm gonna see if I can get it right here.
Cancel early remaining balance.
I think it'll stay.
30-day guarantee, select exclusions apply, 30 activation fee, taxes and restrictions apply.
Game day will never be the same because Pearl River Resort is introducing
Ryan, have you seen the play where the kid was trying to tackle this kid and the kid picked him up and carried it? The kid picked the defender up. I think right there, get it.
And as always, play over 1,100 Vegas-style slots, 25 table games, and our 14-table poker room. Pearl River Resort is redefining what it means to win with Sportsbook, Golden Moon Casino. We're not just fans, we're here to play.
Weather being brought to you by New Floors to Go. If you need new flooring for your home, remember New Floors to Go. 3621 Greensboro Avenue.
That's interesting.
New Floors to Go.
It's just one. You hear that?
Just went out. See if the battery's charging. Is it? Because I don't know if I plugged it in. It was.
You did. That's okay. I got to find out what you call it at.
You know, we don't practice, slants every time. It's just, that's what the defense gives us, And, I mean, if people say, like, they gotta stop running this, it's weak that they're running this, stop it. Gotta stop it.
This kid trying to tackle. He picks up the defender.
So welcome back into Alabama tradition, the past, the present, and the future of the Alabama Crimson Tide as we are covering the University of Alabama across some great affiliates as we talk Alabama Crimson Tide football. We're talking about the third Saturday of October. It is a very special rivalry when you talk about Alabama fans. We've been talking about it. We've been asking the question if Tennessee can get back to making this even a bigger rivalry when we talk about Alabama Crimson Tide football. When you look at the Alabama Crimson Tide, the 102nd meeting, Nick Saban has only lost to Tennessee one time in his entire career. That one time came at LSU. So when you look at Alabama and Tennessee, Nick Saban, 12-0 here in Tuscaloosa. And we do thank Nick Saban for a lot of things, including getting Alabama back to where you're beating Tennessee by a good margin. We also thank Nick Saban for accomplishing championships, establishing a draft pick, but listen, reestablishing it where we walk into Bryant-Denny Stadium at 8:15 on a Saturday night. Man, can you believe 8:15? I'm not complaining because I think it's going to be a fun environment. It's going to be fun to be able to show off the new LED lighting system inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. I'm excited about this game. I'm excited about spending, dinner and breakfast in the same stadium because we'll be leaving. We always have to do a little bit of work following the game. We have to go inside of a press conference, talk to players, coaches, and the opportunity there. So it's going to be fun. I like the atmosphere. I think we're finally in football weather. I would just like for James Spann or any of these meteorologists to move that rain out of the forecast because I don't know if I want to be wet inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. I won't be, but I don't want you to be wet. The press box, it doesn't rain, but I don't want you guys to be wet inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So when we look at Tennessee, Martin, how can they keep this game somewhat close when you look at Alabama, Tennessee, in your opinion?
Well, did Jeremy Pruitt not tell us?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I think that's probably that was really, to me, that's a bad look for his program. To me, he never should have said that. I know he was joking, but as a player on that team, I would be offended by that statement. If you're wondering what we're talking about, Jeremy Pruitt said, "There's a team out there."
I think we got it. Yeah. So
here's what he said.
This is why you got the best producer in the business, Jacob Harrison, across the glass. He's already got the Jeremy Pruitt audio ready. This is what Jeremy Pruitt said about going up against the University of Alabama.
I was thinking about, there's a high school team over in Arkansas. They always onside kick. Okay, they never punt, you know, because I don't know, I've never seen them play. I always hear people talk about it, you know. In fact, I think they played one of the high school teams here in Ash State this year. Somebody was talking about it. So, you know, we really kind of considered that as our game plan. Just don't give them the ball, you know, if we can do that. So, you know, I don't know. As far as the other part, you know, we'll play Batulian, we'll play Q, we'll play JJ, so long, Aaron Beasley. That will give us the best opportunity to have success.
Jeremy Pruitt, you wanted to make a comment about that.
Well, to me, at the end, he said, if he had started off by saying, the best thing to do is to not give them the ball, and we're going to implement, you know, we may implement that strategy, then that wouldn't have sounded as bad as he goes through it. And I think he realized how bad it was sounding, then he tried to save it at the end by saying, we just won't give them the ball. But, you know, the only thing that Tennessee can do is with the offense, with their young quarterback, I think they're a better team. I think they're an improved team. I think that Tennessee is better than what we've given them credit for, Ryan. I think the Georgia State game derailed, and then they got beat by BYU, who really wasn't as bad a team as we thought. Went out and beat USC right after that. But they're not in the same league with Alabama. So what do you do in those situations? You slow the game down. You run the ball. You take short passes or high percentage completion passes because you don't want the clock stopping. And you just limit the number of times Alabama has the ball, whether you're scoring or not. And it may not be bad to run some trick plays and some fake punts, because if you see you can't stop them, I guess what's the difference in giving it to them at the 25 or at the 45?
Well, you wanted to see offensives do what Southern Miss did a couple of weeks ago, where you almost just run the clock down and you begin, because it's 10 or 15 seconds, and you add all that up, and that's a possession that you don't have to defend offensively against Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Did you see something that, I don't like to give him much credit because he made some bonehead calls against LSU, but did you see what Florida did to Auburn? Two things Mullins did was great. No one's really talked about it, right? And this is something that Tennessee could possibly do, is when it was substitution time, they didn't run flying out on the field. They took their time and got lined up. They did, so that ran time. Then they would come to the line like they were going to go hurry up. They had no intentions of going fast, but every time Auburn looked to the sideline, because Florida would look to the sideline, not to get a play, but to make Auburn look to the sideline, and every time Auburn looked to the sideline, they snapped the ball. They did it about 3 or 4 times in that game.
That is smart football.
That is absolutely brilliant, because these coaches look to the sideline, and so Tennessee could try some of that.
Marty Houston and I both are from North Alabama. That's where we are from.
Yes.
Being Cherokee County and just over a couple of counties over in Blount County is where I was raised, in northern Blount County, very close to Marshall County line. But when we look back at the Alabama Crimson Tide rivalry, does it mean more when you look at it from that standpoint? But I also think that it's from the state. You said something as we were in a pregame prep mode. We were talking about Alabama, Tennessee. You made a statement that it's been a continuation of what players prior to you taught you, and then you held that responsibility as a leader in Alabama, that you educated the other players, the new players, how important this game was. You made that statement, and that really gave me a couple of seconds to kind of think, recruiting outside of the state. We still recruit inside of the state quite a bit, but maybe not as dominant as we have. Well, we're dominant. We're just going outside of the state, the Alabama brand. How important is that? Because maybe it's not a continuation. Maybe we need to go back and reestablish recruiting more Alabama players where we can teach a tradition.
I don't know if you recruit Alabama players for the sake of tradition.
Sure,
I
right.
think
you get the best players you can get.
I think you get the best players you can get. But I do think that part of what you do is you do teach tradition. Just like you go in, to me, I pastor a church. Tradition is not to rule how we do things, but tradition shouldn't be lost just because they're not as relevant. There's some things that should be talked about and taught to the next generation because of what they mean to how you carry yourself. and how you interact. And I think that we taught that because it was taught to us. And I think now we're in a position where the young kids, they hadn't been taught it because it really wasn't that important. And on top of that, Tennessee has been really, really, really bad.
Yeah, we were going through some of those, and I mean, but Tennessee, I don't know if this program will ever get back, and I know we both have confidence in Jeremy Pruitt, but I don't think they're going to be patient enough. I don't think they're going to be patient enough, and I think they're going to get themselves in trouble. Sometimes you look at the new toy, like I look at Kirby Smart. How much better is Mark Richt? Now, listen, I'm biased towards Mark Richt. He was one of my favorite coaches in the SEC. I like that he was not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I mean, I enjoyed listening to his testimony. I thought he carried that in the football field thing. But Georgia fans say that Kirby Smart is so much better. I don't know if Kirby Smart's really that much better. I mean, statistically speaking. So Tennessee, I think they're going to get caught with looking ahead and thinking that they can go out and attract a big coach. I don't think it's going to happen.
I totally don't think it's going to happen, Ryan. And you're like me. I like Mark Richt for some of the same reasons, as well as what he did on the field. I mean, the guy happened to actually be coaching
for 15 years.
Yeah, the guy actually happened to be coaching against the likes of Urban Meyer, Steve Spurrier, Nick Saban, Phil Fulmer. Name one set of coaches other than Nick Saban that you would take over any of the guys I just named.
Well,
name any coach.
Nick Saban blocked him, and if 2012, Georgia was the second best team in the country.
Yeah.
And if that one play with Aaron Murray doesn't happen, Mark Richt probably stays there because he probably wins a national title.
Right, and then you also have, who else do you have, Ryan? I totally forgot about Les Miles. Look at the guys that Mark Richt got his 10 wins against. Who is Kirby winning against right now? Tell me who Kirby is winning against. He doesn't beat.
Not against Muschamp.
He's not beating. He's not beating
really
Saban.
Some poor coaching calls in that game. And I know we're on a Georgia show. We could really get started on what's happening over there. All right, so we're going to give away some game balls, and we'll talk about our predictions. We'll get those involved as we talk Alabama Crimson Tide. Martin Houston, 1992 national champion winning fullback at the University of Alabama. He does the Martin Houston Show. You can connect with him. Martin Houston 35 on the Twitter account. We greatly appreciate all of our affiliates throughout, like WSBM 1340 out of Muscle Shoals, WCRL 1580 out of Adiana, 97.9 Fox Sports Shoals up in Florence, Alabama, 94.7 in Douglas, and 1310 down in Foley. 92.9, 92.5 WHEP, the talk of Baldwin, Radio Baldwin. We greatly appreciate you guys for allowing us to be on your airwaves, the past, present, and future on Alabama tradition of the Alabama Crimson Tide right here.
You're in charge of hiring.
All right, so here we go. We're talking more Alabama Crimson Tide football on Twitter and Facebook, YouTube. Finished up our couple of predictions, and we'll even do, if you guys will hang around, we'll do a little bit afterwards, just for a couple of minutes following, but we are live on the radio, and we try to put this on our social networks and have a little fun, and we try to, hey, listen, we're living in a great time in Tuscaloosa. We don't have to watch Jason Witten run all over our Alabama Crimson Tide. We don't have to watch Peyton Manning stand on an 8-foot ladder and direct the band. See, I mean, I'm looking at Jacob, and you guys can't see him, but he's looking at us like we're speaking a foreign language.
Hey, my first memories of Peyton Manning were in a Colts uniform.
That is so crazy.
It is.
I was
We're
thinking
getting
the other day, Ryan, the freshmen at Alabama were starting school.
That's crazy.
They were starting school.
Listen,
the last time Tennessee beat us.
Listen, the guy playing with the Dallas Cowboys, and I'll never forget it. It was inside Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Number one.
And we had nothing. We had no answer for him. We could not counter what he was doing. And it was a very simple.
They just threw it to him, and we couldn't tackle him.
Well, yeah, I mean, he would just run. Oh man. I mean, I have.
Do you remember the Peyton Manning, Brother Oliver duel, like the two dueling when that game up in Birmingham where they were going back and forth audibly? Do you remember that?
No.
The beginning of the game, he changed. Peyton changed, he changed, Peyton changed, he changed, Peyton changed, and threw a touchdown pass. Remember, they started their game off with the long touchdown pass, and it was an audible. It was about the third audible.
Listen, he's getting me on a little bit, okay? I remember it, but I don't remember the technicalities of, like, I remember, you didn't watch the game as a kid the way that you do now.
Oh, wow.
And so,
wow.
I'm really
So you're
aging.
telling me you're trying to say
Listen,
you're a kid?
Man, I was 14.
Did you?
Listen, I was.
He slammed me just then. He was like, "Oh, Martin, hey, that's good," but I was a kid when you talking about happening.
Listen, I was like 12 years old when this national championship team was running around. So, yeah, I remember it, but I can't tell you every play. All right, so we get back to it right here. Here we go.
Let's do breakout player or somebody as well.
Well, you just revert back to your training. I'd say I've experienced, playing at a place like Tennessee, then going to LSU, playing at Ole Miss, where everyone wants to be Alabama, and so having that experience from last year, with the experience that I had last year, translating into this year.
All right, so we're talking more Alabama Crimson Tide football. That was Tua Tagovailoa talking about the experience, Kyle Field, talking about playing in big environments. And, we speak about big environments. We look ahead. How hard is it not to look ahead to that LSU-Alabama game? We've got about 6 minutes left here on Alabama Tradition as we cover the past, present, and future of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Mark, we definitely want to spend a couple of minutes here as we look ahead and spend more time looking at this Alabama game. Let's hand out some guys that emerge and some players of the game as we look at this Alabama Crimson Tide team.
Well, as a group, I think we're going to see another dominant performance from the offensive line, Ryan, which is going to translate to, I think, big gains for Najee Harris and Brian Robinson. I think those guys are going to have some big games. But I'm going to predict again that Tua Tagovailoa goes over that 4 touchdown mark again.
Well, it's almost become automatic.
I mean, I think he does it again, and I think those guys, from a defensive standpoint, I want to see these freshman linebackers play a solid 4 quarters where you don't see the lapse, don't see the mental lapse that I think you've seen, and I think some of that is Saban making them, stretching them, and stressing them on purpose.
All right, so those are guys that we're going to keep our eye on. I want to go back to, there's nothing worse than when you're on defense and you're watching a team run it down your throat. And for everything that I hate about the University of Tennessee and the orange color and Peyton Manning and Philip Fulmer and Roy Kramer and all those guys. I mean, I can feel like that guy that's standing out in front of the University of Alabama. I think it's the Ferguson Center. He's going through, I hate this and I hate this.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Alabama's rushing attack take what they got in Kyle Field and a continuation of that. So I want to see this offensive line bloody some people's nose.
I think that's what we're going to see, Ryan. And one other guy I think that we're going to see have a big game is Jalen Waddle. I think with Devontae Smith being out, Jalen Waddle gets to be even more a part of the offense. So I look for him to repeat last week's performance on the offensive side of the ball, not just special teams.
All right, Vegas has this at about 35.5. This is a large line. Now, I love history of the University of Alabama, but I don't recall every single line that was for the Alabama. This is the 102nd meeting. Vegas didn't even exist when Alabama and Tennessee started playing. So this is a 102nd rivalry of Alabama and Tennessee. This may be the largest line of 35.5 points. That's huge for an SEC game. Do you think they cover this? Because last year's 58-21, and does Nick Saban pile it on? A former coach that Nick Saban gave him the start at the collegiate level, made the transition from Hoover High School as defensive coordinator, player personnel, and worked his way on the field. Does Nick Saban pile on Jeremy Pruitt, in your opinion?
I don't think he necessarily piles on like I'm going to pile on. I just think that the way the game's going to play out, it will come across as piling on. I think the running game will be able to get some big plays, explosive plays, something we hadn't seen a lot of down the stretch. against Tennessee. I think the passing game is going to do what it does week in and week out. So when you look at the end result, Ryan, it's going to look like a piling on, because I think when we go to our backups are going to be able to still score against Tennessee at this point. So it'll look like piling on.
Martin never gives a score. It's like Kirk Herbstreit at the game day. When he sets the stage, he's not allowed to predict the game. So Martin never gives us a prediction this early in the week.
I'll give you how many touchdowns I think they'll win by. I mean, that's...
So over the spread?
Oh, yeah.
35.5?
Yeah. I think our defense plays well enough, and that our offense will be far enough ahead when the defense comes out that it's going to be... I'm thinking we're gonna crest the 60+ mark.
Ooh, Lord!
This week.
Wow!
I know a lot of people have been saying in the 40s.
So Jeremy just walks across the sidelines, throws down the Tennessee hat, and says, "I'll just stay in Tuscaloosa." Jacob, what is your prediction when you look at this Alabama-Tennessee game?
I'm right there with Martin.
See, I'm on the other side.
60 because of the way Nick Saban handles the fourth quarter.
Right.
But I think Tua throws for like over 350 yards and 4 touchdowns in the first half.
Yeah,
his day is done. So I'm thinking 56-0.
I heard someone say that Tua would throw for 400 and something yards, and then they predicted like 30, 40 points. I'm like, if Tua Tagovailoa has 400 yards, brother, I promise you that we have 50 to 60 points.
Okay, I mean, I know last year's was 58-21. Alabama, they've never lost to Tennessee while Nick Saban's coaching at the University of Alabama. Wow. That is a lot of fun. All right, it is the third Saturday of October. We'll have a continuation of Alabama tradition. Is the past, present, and future of the Alabama Crimson Tide. I don't think they cover. I'm going to take it on this side. I'm going to go against you guys.
Offense or defense is the reason we don't cover.
No, I think Nick Saban's going to call off the dogs. I think he knows that Jeremy Pruitt is in trouble.
I do too. I agree.
And I think he's just going to be nice.
I'm going to say something to you.
Okay.
Michigan State.
Help me.
Remember the bowl game. Eddie Lacy comes in as the freshman, and Saban's trying to call off the dogs, and Eddie literally running for a touchdown. He ran right up the middle, and he almost looks to the sideline and goes, "Coach, I'm trying not to score, but it's wide open."
So maybe
and
that's what Nick Saban meant when he said we're going to run our offense earlier this week.
There you go.
We're going to do what we do.
Yeah, do it. And
There's
if we
a lot
do
of
it,
meanings behind that.
if we do what we do, Ryan, we will have 35 to 42 points at halftime.
I don't know about you guys, but I love this matchup. When you're this confident that Alabama's going to beat Tennessee, it's good to be inside Bryant and study the LED lighting. Make your way and join those 101,821 Alabama Crimson Tide fans. It is an ESPN game heard around the network on the Crimson Tide Sports Network with Eli Gold, John Parker Wilson, and Rashad Johnson. For Mark Houston, for Jacob Harrison, I'm Ryan Fowler as we cover the Alabama Crimson Tide, the past, the present, and the future of the Alabama Crimson Tide. We'll talk to you next time. We do thank all of our affiliates, including the originating station, Tide 100.9, right here in Tuscaloosa, as we cover the University of Alabama. We'll talk to you next week.
Why is some of the names on the list you don't say?
I'll show you.
Okay.
So as we talk
we talk about that.
more Alabama Crimson Tide football, as we talk more Alabama Crimson Tide, Facebook, Twitter. So we were having a great conversation about this, and we led into it. I know we didn't go live on all of our social networks, but Martin and I were talking about the third Saturday of October, and you can chime in here on the Twitter account as well. We were asking, has this game lost luster? Does it mean as much? And what we were debating is we go back to when Alabama was losing all those games in a row. And it was, did it lose any meaning from our side of the fence? And we said no, because we wanted to get back out there and find a way to win that game. We wanted to get back out and reverse the trend, the cycle of the streak. And so we were asking that question, and I guess it'd be fair to go up to Tennessee and do a survey up there. But it seems like this rivalry, unfortunately, has lost a little bit of its energy around the third Saturday of October.
And I guess the question is that a good thing or a bad thing or neutral? I put up a poll question actually on my Twitter account at MartinHouston35 and kind of asked the question, does it concern the Bama fans, Ryan, that some of the players, because Tua was asked about it, you asked several players, Saban, they all said, well, it's meant a lot to the fans. None of them had a personal, like if you ask me, hey Martin, what does the Tennessee rivalry mean to you? It means going kicking our neighbor's butt.
Absolutely.
Okay, go
Get
kick
fired up.
their butt. They're the border state. It's a war. I mean, I hate Rocky Top. I
hate Orange.
I mean, please don't come get me. What's the name of that organization? PETA?
Yeah. Peter.
I want to kick Smokey.
Well, it's kind of like,
I mean, you see what I'm saying?
was it, Jerry Duncan, who said, now listen, this is history, okay? So, Jerry Duncan was the sideline reporter for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Smokey walks in, and I think he looks at either, maybe it was Doug Latham, it could have been Eli Gold, but he looked at the play-by-play guy and he said, you know, if you'd hand me my deer rifle, I think I could take him out from here. Now I know, listen, that's it.
Peter's good. We're going to get shut down. Peter's
I mean, but that's okay. I mean, but that was back in the 80s, okay, when he said that. But it was, listen, Coach Bryant hated Tennessee because we were talking about they were good. I mean, they won championships. This is a program that has 13 SEC titles. Now, I know that in current day we're looking like that Tennessee. Yes, that Tennessee. The second richest tradition in the SEC.
Well, Ryan, think about it. My sophomore year, Coach Stallings' first year, we're 2-3 going up to face a top 6. I think they were number 6 Tennessee team. Had all of these pro players that were going to be going, and we ended up winning that game, of course, 9-6 on the block. But they have fallen a long way. And my question is simply, if I'm a fan, would it or should it concern me that the players who are playing in the game don't personally have any vested interest in the Tennessee game? Because I really don't think they do, because it's been so, as Jacob said, like half my life, Martin, that Tennessee who? I mean, it doesn't mean anything. It's like getting upset over losing to Vanderbilt. You know what I mean? Why would you care about losing to Vanderbilt or, somebody like that? And that's where Tennessee has fallen, which is absolutely amazing. But I think it's important, Ryan, because of this. Somewhere Tennessee's going to get better. Alabama's not going to be as dominant. Something's going to be the linchpin. And I believe we've seen it in the Auburn rivalry.
You and I will be watching it from the nursing home
when that
happens.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
I mean,
so I don't even need. Let's just drop the topic. But can I make my point about Auburn?
Yes.
Auburn has beaten Saban when they've been good.
Right.
Saban has not beaten them, and it means something. I go home, Ryan, and the people, the Auburn folk, they still want to dog me for coming to Alabama. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it means something to the Auburn people to play Alabama. And I think to Alabama players, it means something to play that team down in Baton Rouge. And that's their rivalry, but do you want to lose those other traditional rivalries? And hey, maybe this is what Saban wants, Ryan. If the rivalry goes away and Tennessee starts wanting it to go away, maybe you get that ninth SEC game and it rotates and it's no longer Tennessee. I mean, this could lead to that.
Listen,
when conversations start having about that, I want us off our schedule if I was getting my butt kicked every week.
Well, and you look at, a couple of years ago, I think it was LSU in Florida that were debating this and said that, is it fair? Auburn fans, that you guys complain about everything. I mean, everything. So it's not really. I mean, it's just something that you guys do. But when Florida didn't want to play Georgia every year because Georgia's coming strong and obviously. Not as strong as they were this time last week, by the way. So anyway, listen, I love this rivalry. I'm going to enjoy it because that program tried to take down this program.
And that's the part that I think why it's important, Ryan.
Well, I
is-
said
is
to
that
my
this-
audience earlier,
this-
I'm going to play the NCAA speech. I'll see if I can find it.
To me, the reason the rivalry is important and should not lose its tradition amongst the players is they don't understand that the program that they're in almost went belly up because of this program. That's like, does it matter? And maybe you should, and this is, all y'all that know I'm a pastor, just forget I said this. Because I'm supposed to teach about forgiveness and forgetting.
We don't forget, but that didn't apply to Tennessee. Did you read that?
Right. That's in the fine print in the concordance that you do not have to forgive Tennessee. But think about it, if someone did something to your family,
sure,
that changed your family, you may forgive that, you may forget that, but you're gonna tell the next generation about it so that they know to be on the watch for it. And to me, that's what tradition is in football. Alabama, not 92 Alabama, not 2017 Alabama, not 2019 Alabama. The University of Alabama does not like the University of Tennessee when it comes to football program, and vice versa. It matters, but I don't know that they know that it should matter.
All right, so we got to get out of here. We appreciate you on YouTube, Periscope, Twitter. Big thanks to Jacob, as always, behind the scenes. For Mark Houston, for Ryan Fowler. Hey, roll tide until next time. I think Alabama, I think Nick Saban's going to respect Jeremy Pruitt. I think he's going to keep this game close. We'll talk about it next time right here on Alabama Tradition, the past, present, and future of the Alabama Crimson Tide. You know, I don't know if this thing is continuing.
It was so long.
Oh, yeah, it's just... All right, good night. Roll tide. You feel this temp? I'm like saturated over here.